I Want to Jump Like Dee Dee, with me, Giles Sibbald, is the music podcast that does music a bit differently. I'm talking to some incredible musicians, DJs and producers about how they use an experimental mindset to fuel their own creativity, pursue new challenges, overcome fears, bounce back from mistakes. So today we're all about that, using that experimental mindset in the music business, from an artist, educator, author, dad, public speaker and entrepreneur, who really is the definition of a multi-hyphen. He's played with Public Image, with Killing Joe, Ministry, Nine Inch Nails, and his current collective Pigface. He's also the music business program coordinator at the School of Music faculty at Millikin University in Illinois, and has written books about basically the business of music, tour smart, band smart. He's also the founder of Invisible Records, which has released around, I'm going to say, about 350 records since it began. So it's my great pleasure to welcome Martin Atkins onto the show. Thanks very much, Martin, for coming on.
Thanks, Giles. Nice to be here.
Brilliant.
I'm just looking behind me, like not very entrepreneurial to not have. I don't see any of my books on the shelf behind me. I'm an idiot.
We're going to talk about personal brand, and you failed at the first hurdle.
Yeah, exactly. But I hate that when I watch somebody on a news show and they turn. Well, I do have my Pigface coffee right there, but they turn their own book the other way around. Yeah.
So one phrase that has become sort of synonymous with you, and what I really love about it is the phrase "get the fuck out of bed," right?
Yeah.
So, to me, you've always been very vocal about taking responsibility for yourself. And what I love about that, to me, that you're basically kind of making a brand out of that phrase, which I think is amazing. How's that sort of gone down?
Well, I mean, it is a brand. It turned into a coffee brand, it's something that, and I'll tell you the story about it in a minute, but it's something that's really useful to me as I deal, Millikin University is in Decatur, Illinois, which was home of Archer Daniels Midland, Caterpillar, these huge, there's three places that employ everybody in the town. And so when I deal with the Economic Development Council down there, they're trying to find the next Archer Daniels Midland conglomerate. I'm like, yeah, however, you can find one of those, or you can find 1,000 people like me who turn a phrase, "get the fuck out of bed," into a coffee that actually employs people in Guatemala and is the number 2 seller for dark matter coffee. So so you show them the coffee, and here's another brand of my coffee behind me. You show them the coffee, and it's this great, like, look, these are words, and these words sell more coffee, But I have to be honest, and as much as I'd like to say, yeah, entrepreneurial marketing, I have 4 boys, and I started, oh my God, 12 years ago, to get pretty tired of, like, come on, it's 9 o'clock, it's 10 o'clock, it's 11 o'clock, that's the last time I'll let you play Xbox till 5, around the clock, So I think I read a book called The Last Lecture about a guy who was dying of cancer, who created this, he was known for his lectures, and he created this lecture that was then released as a book, which was basically a message to his children. And so I think, I'm just piecing this back together, but I think I wanted to not be the cardboard cutout dad who would just be, come on, don't forget your cardigan. I didn't want to be the asshole. So I came up with this big slide with the basically keep calm, right?
Yeah.
Keep calm and carry on. And I have a coffee mug somewhere. And and so after I'd done a couple of lectures, and I did one lecture for Ruby programmers in Madison, Wisconsin, and they were in this huge theater, and my slides were, I swear to God, 60 feet high. So I've got this picture of this huge slider like me, you know, and I sat down with my boys and I said, listen, man, I mean, this isn't just me being that dad. This is actually part of one of my keynote addresses that I get. You know, it was all just a bullshit smokescreen, really. And so then I'd tweet. I've been tweeting for 11 years. Get the fuck out of bed. You know, just it started off as that. And then it was get the fuck out of bed. Your career won't destroy itself. Your friendships won't destroy themselves with the bitterness of unfulfilled blah, blah, on the rocks of despair. And I just started, you know, and then strangely, and I think this works with the general vibe. Although Dark Matter Coffee is here in Chicago, and they have 110 employees now and 7 or 10 locations. It wasn't until I was at South by Southwest, I speak there, spoken there for the last, I want to say 12, 13 years. When you go out of town, not that you can now, but when you go out of town, I feel myself kind of, you magnetized to people from the same, oh, it's you, you know, and so it took going 1,500 miles away to hang out with the people from Dark Matter who are amazing and say, hey, I've got this idea. And they're like, oh, okay, you know, and it became a coffee currently on its 3rd iteration with the bags and has been a really good seller for them and a really interesting, it's been really interesting for me because I've done a lot, as you said at the beginning, but you know, then people say to me, oh, you've got your own coffee. I'm like, oh, fuck off. You know, my name's on a bag. You know, I've done an awful lot of much harder things in my life, which you seem to be dismissing. And now I've got my name on a bag of coffee. Suddenly it's like, oh my goodness, how does he do it?
That's kind of the holy grail.
Yeah, but one of my favorite South by Southwest was the year after we launched the coffee. I went down there with like 100 bags of coffee, and I also contacted a Chicago company that makes gin called Leatherby's. And they gave me like 5, like what a stupid idea. They gave me 5 cases of these, you know, little hip bottles of gin. So I'd see somebody like Bob Boylan from NPR radio, All Songs Considered, you know, and he knows me now, but back then it was like, oh, fuck, this guy's going to give me a demo or something. Yeah. And I'd be like, hey, bottle of gin, bag of coffee. And people were just like, oh, you know, so, so the path with the coffee has been really interesting for sure.
Well, I mean, you've been a, you know, like I said, this kind of like sort of multi-hyphen, you know, kind of career. You know, obviously sort of starting out in music, and you know, from my own sort of experience, you know, to go into the sort of the multi-hyphen thing where you're doing lots of different things. You know, it's not often easy, or a lot of people don't find that easy, and you need a kind of certain mindset for that. I mean, I'm interested in like your, you know, going back in time, the sort of the formative influences that you know on you that helped kind of evolve this mindset.
Well, okay, well, you've got to say punk, DIY. I mean, I was in a band with Johnny Rotten for 5 years.
Yeah,
you know. A really, I mean, it's kind of lame for me to say at the height of the, but 79 to 85, I missed the first Pill album, but I'm on Metal Box, so I was around for Metal Box, Melody Maker, front cover, John Peel, Old Grey Whistle Test, Paris Au Printemps was my first ever gig with them, American tour. Then I was fired. Then they hired me back. Then Flowers of Romance, This Is What You Want, This Is What You Get, live in Tokyo, the first 32-track digital live album. So that, of course, was an influence on me. My dad used to play trombone and banjo and had his own band, but he kind of gave that up, as his generation kind of did, I think, to work on the factory floor, go to night school, become a manager, work his way up. ended up being a general manager of Courtaulds Textiles in Durham, in the north of England, in charge of 3,000 people. So I think he gave up that, what you call a frivolous pursuit, to support his family. And he would talk to me about Dale Carnegie. He developed games to play with his managers. And I guess I was on the floor while he was going, what decision would you make? And I guess that he taught me to prepare for situations. So when I auditioned for a band, I think I was 11 or 12. And he stopped by. They had 2 days of auditions. And he stopped by the audition and said, hey, look, my son is 12. I just wanted to check everything out. And while he was checking everything out, he was kind of looking for the songs they had written down. And so they said, is there a bathroom here? So he went to the toilet, wrote down as many, so Thank Christ for the Bomb, Uriah Heep, Groundhogs, Free, All Right Now. And, and then after he came over in the bathroom, he scanned a few more songs, jumped in the car, wrote them down. And then we found all these albums. So I was the last audition on the Sunday, by which time I'd listened, mapped out all of these songs. And that's exactly what I did when I got an opportunity to, even after I played on the Metal Box, I then had to audition to join PIL.
Oh, yeah.
It was because there's so many drummers played on the Metal Box. So that's an influence on me. And then I've been doing these events where I go back 40 years, the anniversary of being on the John Peel show, the date by date first 1980 American tour of PIL. So we do the Boston edition, the New York edition. And as I've gone through these events, I've kind of relived that time period. And I was fired from PIL 3 times and then I left. But the first time I was fired, I said on the radio in San Francisco, ask me why I have my own band, which is called Brian Brain, while I'm in PIL. And so the interviewer asked me on the air, and I said, well, it's a good question, interesting question. I want to be involved with something that isn't a mismanaged catastrophe, because PIL, we just played to 10,000 people in Los Angeles at the Olympic Auditorium, and we didn't have any T-shirts. And to me, as a 20-year-old, it's kind of stunning to like reread this stuff. Like, oh my goodness, that's the seeds of me now, right? And Keith and John, the guitarist, and of course Johnny Rotten, were always banging on about independence, this, and smash the system. It's like, yeah, but we could have sold 1,000 shirts. And had $15,000 off to the side to further smash the system into more pieces. It seemed ridiculous. So I guess this was happening. I started my own label while I was still in PIL called Plaid Records, which was very short-lived. I sent all of the albums that we made to a distributor that went bankrupt 3 weeks later. So I was left owing all my investors' money with it's just a mess. When I joined Killing Joke, and this is kind of, this is definitely a formative moment. We were at a club, and you got to tell me if I'm just rambling.
No.
We're at a club in Houston, and for the artists amongst us, I play drums, and I really like having lots of drum monitors in terms of power. I needed it in PIL because Jar Wobble's bass was so low.
So yeah,
I just but I like to sit behind my kit and I hit my bass drum. And it's like, oh shit, boom, boom, and I want the sound system to be good so that people at the back can't talk. They're just like, oh, fuck, oh, they're being like physically assaulted by my drums. Because I'm a very physical player. So I sit behind the kit on stage in Houston at this Killing Joke show. I'm like, oh, hey, turn on the monitors. I can't, there's nothing going on. And the guy says, they're on. I'm like, oh Christ. And so I immediately know I play so I can hear my drums.
Yeah.
So if I don't have any help from the monitors, I'm going to play much heavier and louder than usual. I could blow out a knee. My knees get screwy, and I'm like, okay, this could be catastrophic.
This could be serious, yeah.
And then I say to the front of house mixing guy, okay, because I'm like, let's turn on. Maybe I'll get the effect of the main house system. Turn on the house system, and it was just comical. It's on. So see, normally you hit your bass drum, and I'd be punched in the kidneys by the monitors, and then you hear this boom coming off the back wall. So I immediately know my knees are going to be worse after the show.
Oh my!
People are going to be just talking amongst themselves, and then come to find out that whereas normally at that time, I want to say 89, we would have played for like a 10, 12, maybe a $15 ticket. The promoter got greedy, was thinking 500 people. If I charge 25, that's this amount of money, from those 500 people. Well, what happened was 350 people bought tickets instead of 500. So then he has to look around to go, how can I save money? I know, I'll give Martin a little poxy little wedge monitor, and we'll reduce the sound system so we can get away with it. And so I started to see the role of attention to detail and basic business had on my experience as a spitting in the air, sweating, smashing my drums artist. And so, and I like to connect those dots because sometimes crazy artists like myself or just people who are immersed in their instruments I don't want to hear about the business. I don't want it to pollute my vision. Well, if you don't pay some attention to it, it's going to pollute your vision one way or another. You can either deal with it creatively, or not. So all of these things have kind of gone into my experience. And I think Saturday we're having a Zoom event to celebrate the 30th anniversary of a ministry concert that was recorded as In Case You Didn't Feel Like Showing Up. And so ministry was two drummers, myself and Bill Rieflin, who's no longer with us, and just this crazy cohort of crazy cohort of Max. Be quiet. Oh, he's not going to be quiet.
It gives it all an extra dimension. It's all good.
That's a good boy, Max. What can you do? FedEx doing something. So just this crazy conglomerate of all these different Ogre from Skinny Puppy, Chris Conley from Feeney Tribe, Revolting Cox, KMFDM were opening, Paul Barker on bass, all these people. And so it was chaos. It was complete chaos. And even though we used electronics, the loops, you got to tell me if it's too much detail.
No.
Like so some drummers might just like, here's this loop, and you press start, or you pre-record the backing to a song and you play along, and there you go. But there was a jam band mentality to ministry where somebody would re-trigger the loops every 16 bars, just in case someone had been like punched. Right. I mean, there was like it wasn't in case the bass solo went on too long. It was in case like there's physical mayhem and the singer couldn't get to the mic, And so then I took all of that into my band Pigface. So then, and I'm still answering your first question about what the influence of all this. So all of that leads me to start this band Pigface, which has a rotating lineup. So I've been in PIL, which we never rehearsed. I mean, it was just a thing. Like anything that normal bands would do, we didn't.
Do.
What do you want to do with the lights? All white, no lights, or all green, and the lighting guy will be like, what are we doing? Nothing. Just turn them on and fuck off. Okay, all right then. What do you want to do with security? No security. Who do you think we are? And like, so you'd have people just walking away with the sound system sometimes, you know. And so having just dealt with that, one of the last Pill shows I did, there was riot police with German shepherds on stage. I mean, just you're in the middle of chaos, and the only thing that will save you is just fronting it out and staring people down. You know, how dare you? 1,000 people. It's Johnny Rotten. How dare you? Who's like, oh, fuck. You know, but so Pigface became, after being in all these different bands, there'll be a revolving lineup, which is cool. But then it's like, oh, version number 3 for tour number 3. Who's going to be in the band? How will the songs go? And I'd say, well, I don't know how the songs are going to go, because we all haven't done that song. You can listen to 3 different versions, and, you know, but I want you, whoever that person is, to bring yourself into this. So I guess my whole point being, I gained what I think is a very high tolerance for chaos and uncertainty.
Yeah.
And I describe some of that, staying on the music tip, of like when Peter Gabriel, I don't know if he still performs anymore. He would turn his back to the audience, and I mean, he'd wait a minute so everybody knew he's falling backwards, you know. So there was absolutely no danger, right? And I'm sure there's a few crew members like, Steve, come on, he's doing his fucking, oh, you know. And but by doing that, you create the rush for support. You know, if you don't do it, or if you said beforehand, I'm thinking about doing this thing where I turn around, who will sign up on the support list? And people are like, what the fuck? I'm not signing a form. How dare he? What's he go? You know, plus you've ruined the surprise. You've ruined the moment by asking, but you know, so all of those things inform somewhat the things that I'm doing now.
I mean, I guess that it's an interesting one, that, you know, that kind of chaos, you know, or that ability or high tolerance for chaos, as you said. I mean, has really kind of set you up kind of perfectly for the kind of world that we live in now, which is very uncertain. It's very volatile. It's hugely sort of complex as well. If you've kind of evolved with that kind of mindset, that there's all this kind of chaos around, and how to, and working out how things function, put things together. I mean, that's incredibly kind of powerful, isn't it?
Well, I said, with the students at Millikin, we do a thing called the Midwest Music Expo, which was, you know, you put a couple of letters and an X in just to kind of echo the South by Southwest vibe. And so instead of going to a conference, we created one. And the first one we did in Decatur, Illinois, it's a beautiful campus down there, was designed to magnetize people to the campus. And we had people come from Nashville, St. Louis, Chicago, whatever, 250-mile radius. Maybe 250, 300 people for our very first event with just a few weeks' notice. And so as we come into the next year, which is 2020, I don't know when everything started to happen. We were looking at doing the event in May, our second conference. And as we're March, lockdown starts to happen. And I sat with the students. I'm like, we can't do this. The bigger the triumph we have, the worse it will be, magnetizing all these people. So I said, we just got to cancel. So we canceled. And then within a week, I'm like, this doesn't feel right. What's going on with this fucking Zoom thing?
Yeah.
And like, you know, part of me is just eye rolling, like, okay, there's another platform now. What's going on?
Yeah.
And so this is as early as March of 2020. Time is just whatever. So we start to put we're doing this online thing. Isn't it crazy? So I called Lol Tolhurst from The Cure. Hey, Lol, would you be on this thing? And I've done events with him in the past. I really like him. And he has a great book out about The Cure. And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll give you an hour. Well, I'm like, this is not the end of the fucking world, because there was no way that Lol was going to get on a plane to Chicago from LA, drive 2 hours to Decatur, stay the night, because we'll probably stay the night in Chicago, drive down, stay the night in Decatur, come back to Chicago, stay the night. So it's 4 days of his time. Yeah. He travels with his wife. And what is it, like $8,000 on a deal to have him? He just said, yeah, I'll give you an hour. And so, like, that was awesome. Randy Blythe, the singer from Lamb of God, who he toured with my band Pigface in 2019. He has a book out. He talked about sobriety. Galen Lee, who plays electric looped fiddle from her motorized chair. She's brittle boned. She did a thing about disability rights from her apartment in Minneapolis. I'm like, this is pretty fucking cool, actually. And we tripled registrations. And instead of being a 250-mile radius of Decatur, Illinois, we had people from 23 countries. So I saw, that was a blessing, really. I saw as early as May 2020 that this was not the end of the world. And so seeing that, I said to my assistant, Molly, and whoever was around, I'm like, well, there goes my summer. They're like, what are you talking about? I said, well, I'm going to do an event every week. And we did 80 events. Wow. 80 events in 2020, a total attendance of over 7,500. And then I started to do this, like, all right, screen printing workshop. So I did a screen printing workshop. I did an online touring class, because one of my books, which isn't on my, you can just see it there. That's the part of the spine.
There you go.
Come on, there we go.
It's there.
So smart. So I did a 12-week touring class for free on a Monday night. And it would go for 2.5 hours. But it started to be this community.
Yeah.
And then there's a kid from El Salvador, somebody from Spain, a guy in New Zealand. And so we start doing a recap Saturday mornings. And because it was about the connection, I didn't want to just play the tape. Right? So I have got no time. I'm doing events all over the place. I start to do PIL events, Killing Joke events, this ministry event we're doing on Saturday. And starting to reach out to people, and you start to see the power of all of this stuff. So, and I kind of call that, I call it incrementalism, right? So every time I do a PIL event, maybe there's 50 to 250 people involved. Well, those are all connections that at some point in the future might buy my PIL book or my Killing Joke book, or attend a class, or help me out when I've got a flat tire in Denver or El Salvador or whatever. So it just seemed like, I think one of the things I look at is, not in this way though, return on investment. And so when we did a Pigface show in 2016, anybody who bought tickets directly from me got 2 t-shirts, a laminated pass, something else. So I'm sitting looking at a box that's going from me to a person. So there's an opportunity. So they get a handwritten note, and now it's personalized. So now I'm sitting on the couch over here getting writer's cramp because there's 400, right? And then, Steve's letter has to be kept separate from Susan's letter, because there's nothing worse than a misaddressed personalized note. And then it's like, what if I put a handful of candy in with each package? And because you have an opportunity to delight people, make them smile, and make their day. And it's like, if you're ever in that position, how could you not do it over the sake of a handwritten note and a handful of candy? So we are still, I'm still in the experimental stage, I think, of all of this stuff. Hand screened, signed and numbered art as part of album packages, and this, this whole pay what you want idea
Yeah.
all of that stuff.
You see, I mean, I think there's sort of a couple of things that sort of stand out to me. I mean, not necessarily about online, but about a kind of like a sort of thinking outside the box. I love that story of this an Uber driver, sort of in California somewhere, and he knew that he was going to make more money from one of his side hustles, and his side hustles was basically kind of making and selling jewelry.
Huh.
So he knew that he would have in his cab customers' undivided attention for kind of 15 minutes.
Yeah.
What do you do? Brilliant. I mean, when you hear it, it's so simple, but you need to kind of think that way. The other thing, about the online stuff that you're talking about, I completely agree. I think it's really kind of untapped. I think you're scratching the surface of this, but the community that it can build, the connection, and show that kind of power. And like you say, it's not always about kind of like immediate money. It could be just sort of something in return here and there. Incredible.
That's the other thing that I talk about a lot now. I think one of the things that an attitude from my dad, an attitude from just that whole generation, if not everyone, was like, enjoy your 15 minutes with Pill. You got to it's like worse than a Premiership footballer. You've got enjoy this literal 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And so it took a while for me to understand, hold on a minute. When we went out with Pigface in 2019, this couple comes up to me. It's like this girl, and I thought, oh, she's with her parents. And they're like, they show me this photograph. And she's 20 today. You're playing in Baltimore. And like, I think she was like conceived after a Pigface show, and then they show me this other picture, and I'd screen printed a baby onesie, and which came with a hat with the Pigface logo, and here she is standing in front of me, and there's so many reminders of, this is not a smash and grab 2-year thing. If you want to build something, as I'm celebrating the 40th anniversary of this and the 30th anniversary of the Killing Joke Extremities album and whatever, you can have a long career doing this stuff. But my career has been like this.
Yeah.
I teach, I write books. I was almost a professional keynote speaker for a couple of years, and now the thing that I like now is I'm doing all of those things.
Yeah.
I love playing my drums once in a while. We do a couple of Pigface shows here and there. I'm working on some more books. I'm screen printing and doing art. I'm teaching. I'm running my label, reissuing stuff on vinyl. I'm doing all of these things.
Well, you mentioned a minute ago just about about a kind of Premiership football player. Any sort of high performing sports players, for example. They've got a in that industry they've got a shelf life of what, 13 years, 12, 13, something like that.
Maybe at the outside, yeah. Yeah.
And they if that by kind of 32, 33, it's like you're pretty much done. You've then got, given that we're living longer, you've then got another sort of 60 years. What are you going to do?
Right.
And there was an example, and it struck me that sort of similar to what you've done. So Louis Saha from Man United, basically sort of set up his own marketing company, but for sports players. So he's kind of using his knowledge of the industry, but applying it in a different way.
Right.
Which is, it's a skill that he knows the industry, but he's just applying using his skills and learning as he goes along.
Right. So I think exactly what I'm doing now is I guess up until maybe 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I was a drummer for quite a while, pretty successful, and then at the same time started a label. Because I had the label, it was just common sense to have a studio, because all my money was going for other people's studios to do kind of half-assed jobs that I knew I would have done differently. So I taught myself to engineer, because I lived in studios anyway. I taught myself to engineer. Steve Albini sold me his tape machines and helped me wire up my own studio.
Mm-hmm.
I stumbled and bumbled through that. But that financial decision was actually huge for my label, because all of the releases on my label had more time in the studio spent on them than really they should have. Right. So everything was elevated, not in terms of quality, but certainly in terms of focus and quality as well. So my label developed a more interesting voice, I think. The studio became an asset to acquire other artists to sign to my label. That if I was just competing with money, I would have lost to any other label. And so and then I did that, and there was a period where I was in my studio 16 hours a day. That's what I was doing. And the label did its thing, and I fed the label stuff to release. And then I started teaching kind of accidentally. Which can I tell you that little?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
because we don't decide. I don't think we decide these paths. We're either open to them or we're not. So I went to Columbia College, Chicago, which is a hugely esteemed place just up the street here in Chicago, because we were putting together these big package tours. We were sending out 8 different postcards in bundles to tattoo parlors, clothing stores, record stores, and some to the venues as well. It was this ridiculous, intensive operation. And I heard about the idea of interns. I'm like, oh, fuck, this is perfect. It's an open plan office. They can hear all the shit that's going on while they're putting labels on postcards and doing some really mundane tasks. So I went to Columbia College, Chicago. They asked me to come and present on what I was doing to get some interns. So I had all these slides. We're doing these tours. We had 20,000 promotional CDs, 2 buses, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, fantastic. When can you start? And I said to them, I can put 3 interns in my car now, and however you want to do this. They're like, no, when could you start teaching? And I said, teaching what? Like, what are you talking about? Because I left school when I was 16, 5.0 levels. And they said, well, you should teach the business of touring. And I was just, I mean, I didn't say, get what the fuck. But honestly, I think we had 2 kids at the time. And I thought, the craziest thing I could possibly do now is say yes.
Yeah.
It's insane. And so I asked a couple of questions like, well, how long is this class? Was it like an hour? Like, it's 6 hours on a Saturday. I'm like, oh fuck, 6 hours. All right. I'm like, oh, how long do I have to prepare? Well, the first class is this Saturday. I'm like, what are you? So, and then once again, I just thought the craziest thing I can do here is do this.
Yeah.
And I thought that, sorry, my phone's pinging. And okay. The craziest thing I can do is say yes.
Say yes.
I think this is good for me as a dad. Shut up, I'm a teacher. And I thought that was the opportunity to teach, and that would be kind of interesting. But also, there's a couple of things that we talked about coming into play: the lack of rehearsal, right? The ability to improvise. Class Saturday, 6 hours, right. But I walked into that first class, and I'm like, is there a textbook? And the student like holds up this little textbook, and I open it. I'm going, oh, I better, what are they saying? And I opened it up, and it was like the logistics of theatrical touring, blah 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 blah, Hope Smith and blah blah blah, 1963. And I'm like, okay. And I close the book. I say, class, can anybody tell me when this, you're paying a lot for this class. It's an expensive school. You probably paid $100 for this book. Can anybody tell me when it was written? No, sir. And in my head, I don't think I did this. I hit a student upside the head with the book. I'm like, it's written in 1963. What are you doing? Where do you hope to go if you just come into this class? I could tell you anything now. What are you going to nod your head and do the assignment? This book was written in 1963. So I started to think about touring, and then talk to like a compilation album, talk to other experts in the field. I think there's 100 people in Tour Smart. And then because I'm ADD, I cost a bloody fortune for the layout, but I had like illustrations everywhere because I can't stand those books that are just print. They're intimidating. And I wanted an ADD person like myself who was failed by traditional school to have a foothold through.
Got you.
And so somebody called me up and said, "Oh, the chapter about hitting your grandmother in the face with a brick." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And apparently, in the accounting section, there was a story which got that student to the next page. Wow. And then all through accounting, I had this rubber stamp. I didn't stamp the books; it was in the artwork. Yeah. Boring. And then more of that, like throwing caution to the wind performance art aspect. I told the people at Columbia, I can do these classes during rehearsals, that I need 3 weeks off because I'm going on tour. And is it okay with you if we condense the last 2 Saturday classes into an experience at the Cabaret Metro, this venue that's been going since 1980, by Wrigley Field, where the Cubs play in Chicago. And we'll do like a double thing. I put all the students on the guest list and it will be this experience. And they're like, "Oh yeah, okay, a practicum." And I put them all on the guest list. They met us at Load In at noon. I had them smell the road crew. I'm like, "Here, go, fuck," and then because I didn't know what to do with them while I was on stage, I reserved 2 tables upstairs in the balcony and gave them their own bar tab. And it's like, and that connection to reality started to inform my classes to the point where when I was department chair at a school here in Chicago called SAE, and they're all over the world, for the final project with the students, I'd say, "Okay, what do you want to do?" The first couple of projects, I had students put 22 artists, slightly less or slightly more, on the same bill at a rock club called Reggie's, a really well-established rock club, 450 capacity, and they put on their own show. And I'm like, "There are no grades in this class. Fuck grades." And they're like, "Yeah, fuck grades." But I said, "But you'll pass or fail. You'll either sell the venue out or you won't." Yeah. And they're like, "Oh shit!" So it's acceptable for students to be worried about attendance at a concert, but also fuck grades. But that was the grade. It is a grade.
It is a grade.
So then you start to get into this performance art, punk rock DIY classes. So we did that a couple of times, and it was really good. Parents started coming to the event, and we had in the meeting for another project, I said, "Okay, you've seen what we've done in the past." They read student comments, what I wish I'd done, how we could have done this better, our advice to you. And this one student said, "Well, we could put DJs on the train, the elevated train in Chicago. It's in the French Connection." I'm like, and then the student immediately said, "No, that's crazy." I'm like, "Not only is that not crazy, if we don't do it, I'm going to quit." And so then,
wow.
So we end up dealing with the city of Chicago, which I, like an idiot, I'm thinking, how difficult could this be? It's the city. It's not like dealing with some lunatic in a rock band. Well, we spent 10 weeks dealing with the city, this guy, Bill, and he's like, I'm on a train with Jake Gyllenhaal on like he was like the ambassador of the train situation. And I was at South by Southwest. I had a 2-hour phone call with the guy. We were getting along great, but there's no paperwork. You know, it's $2,000 to rent 2 train cars for an hour. But the students, we all learned so much. We got DJs who should have been paid $1,000 to $2,000 for a set. They were just like, nobody even mentioned getting paid. They just wanted to DJ on a moving train, you know.
Yeah.
The fucking film footage was amazing. We got like 1 million hits on YouTube. And it's like, I wanted to show the students, you can fucking do anything.
You can do it, yeah.
You know, and then we get a phone call like 2 months later, Uniglow Clothing, which sponsors all the big tennis players.
Yeah.
It's somebody, it's Susan from Uniglow Clothing. I'm like, yeah, what's going on? What have I done? You know, they're like, well, we're launching a new store in Chicago. I'm like, oh, great. And we've got this idea to do a moving thing on a train. I'm like, oh, good idea. We just did that. She's like, well, we know you did. How did you do it? Because we're dealing with the city. I'm like, oh, are you talking to Bill? Like, who's Bill? We're talking to, you know, like, so I just said, listen, this is kind of a consult, really. And she's like, yes. And I'm like, and that's fine. I'll consult with you, but you've got to give 2 of my students an opportunity to work on this. Because truth be told, they made it happen. And so by just being crazy,
yeah,
you know, and I turned that into another tweet. Great things happen when you do stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing happens when you don't.
When you don't.
So if your goal is, how can I get an internship with, it was called Invisible North Marketing in New York City, who work with Uniglow. How can I get an internship? I don't know. Like, you send them your resume. What a waste of time. But you put DJs on a train in Chicago, and you know.
I mean, that's a fantastic story, and kind of like an example that you know, the kid who sort of suggested it, you know, like his immediate reaction was, nah, I can't do that. That's crazy. So that's like sort of self-belief is like, nah, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I don't know. And people, I think, you know, sort of don't do things because either they don't believe in themselves or they fear the rejection.
Right.
It's like, you know, I'm going to get rejected. You then said, nah, let's do this.
Right.
Just that support, you know, is critical.
Well, and so a couple of things come into play, you know. So when my students put on a show at Reggie's Rock Club, or my Millikin students put on MMX, you know, Wendy Day, who did the biggest hip hop deal in the Cash Money deal, she spoke, you know. I'm also fortunate, like, I look at what my assets, what I have to play with, and I'm not in a position where if an MMX goes badly or a Reggie's Rock Club event is a catastrophe, it's like, all right, I'm on Metal Box and I was in a band with Johnny Rotten and 9 Inch Nails. Right? It's not the end of my career, you know. So, you know, so it's easier for the consequences.
Agreed. Yeah.
Although when I see the consequences to the students, we did it. Hey, we can do anything, you know. So, you know, I don't know what's more important, a bunch of students thinking they can do it or my reputation. I don't care, really, you know. And so that's an important part of all of that. And then once you do that a couple of times, I've got there's a school, I think they're in Denmark. I had a layover in Amsterdam or something. I was speaking in Amsterdam, and I see these signs everywhere. Chaos Pilot. I'm like, oh, what a stupid band name. Well, it's the name of a school. It's the name of a school. And I called them up. I called them up. I'm like, oh, they were in Amsterdam. I'm like, I'm in Amsterdam. I'll come and speak. What you doing? They're like, we're not in session this week. Call me next week or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
So I call this guy a week or two later, And I mean, the poster for the school was basically, it's fucking crazy. You know, we'll teach you to surf on chaos. Fuck chaos, right? You know, and so I called this guy, and he's like, "Hello, we have just landed in Vietnam." I'm like, "Oh, so I'm like, I didn't mean to call you on your vacation. Give me a call when you're back." He's like, "No," and I can hear this like, "I'm here with students on a trip." I'm like, "Oh, what are you doing? What's happening?" And then he said to me, "I don't know, something." And I was just like, holy shit. The idea that he was so comfortable. Like, I know a lot of people will be like, well, 8 a.m. tomorrow, we've got the chief's reception with the Board of Trades and Commerce. And then we've got a presentation, Vietnam, entrepreneurship, then and now. Like, you know, but it's just like, what are you doing? He's like, I don't know. Like, you know, so all of these little bits kind of fuel me to take risks. I don't, well, and then that's another one of my little sayings. The greatest risk is not taking a risk, and there's absolutely no such thing as safety. There just isn't.
How, I mean, that's an interesting one. Like, generally, I feel like amongst a large part of the population, as they get older, their risk taking, their appetite for risk kind of decreases. You know, it's like, I don't know about that. It's a little bit too risky. You, I'm guessing, don't have that.
Well,
or do you judge things in a different way?
I don't know. I mean, I've got 4 kids, you know, so I'm not some kind of lunatic, you know. I mean, so my example before was like hand signing notes and putting candy, you know, and my wife is there. My wife is at the top of the stairs. I'm like, shit, I've got to go and buy more cheap bulk candy
yeah,
for people to have this, you know. And she said to me, "You do this to yourself," yeah, which caused me to be like, you know, should I I do, you know, should I not do this? I could do this way more efficiently. My hands are getting, which led to my master's degree thesis, which is the myth of efficiency in creative media, which I did a talk for Google, you know. So it's just like, so, I mean, honestly, some of my tweets feel like they're empowering tweets. A bunch of them are me, you know, just for, I type it out and put it, and then it bounces back to me, you know. The risk, I mean, honestly, the riskiest thing you could do is not to take a risk.
Not to take a risk.
How do you distinguish yourself? How do you differentiate yourself?
And I guess with that as well, you know, what you're doing, you know, when you're tweeting, you're also kind of like empowering yourself as well. I mean, you know, with collaborations, and I know you've done a lot of collaborations over the years, and you know, having other people around to support you, you know, where you're in that kind of thing. Okay, we're going to do this. You know, again, is empowering. It helps you. It's a support, kind of like a support mechanism.
Well, yeah, but when I'm being, you know, one of the coolest things about Pigface, I'm pretty shy. So one of the things, my mechanism for meeting people, it can be on stage. Come and join us on stage. You know, that leads to some camaraderie or whatever. But I think that's most fruitful for me when I'm working with people I don't know what they're going to do. So Genesis P. Orridge, which he's kind of a, you know, controversial figure from Psyche TV, who's sadly no longer with us. The first show he did with us. So these are all the, we're getting to all these little bits that are like, right, make me who I am.
Yeah.
He came on stage in San Francisco with 6 cassette tape machines. And I'm like, what you gonna do with that? Which song, what song is that for? And he's just like, well, I don't know, because he hadn't listened to any of the songs anyway. But he was absolutely going to experience with every fiber of his being, including his ears, the songs as he worked within them.
Yeah, yeah.
And those songs just changed, which is so. In those kind of risky moments, there is everything is alive,
Yeah.
I describe at the worst end of boredom on stage, like if I'm playing drums on my own, I'll drop my sticks, like, oh shit, I dropped my sticks.
Yeah, yeah.
If there's 5 people in the room, you could smash my knuckles with a hammer, set with a lighter under. There's no way I drop sticks in front of 5 people because of that energy.
Yeah, yeah.
And we've started to experiment with this with Pigface, and I can't believe we've never done this until 2019. We had a VIP package, and it's like you get the vinyl album and the shirts and the pass and Andy, and you get to come on stage with us and bang a drum. Grab some sticks. We made the mistake of sending out the sticks by the time the show came out, everybody lost their sticks, so we had to give them more sticks. We should have had there'll be sticks in a bucket, But I'm like, what can we do? How can we differentiate this? And this band would do this, and VIP signing session, which is like, So we said, well, plus you get to come to rehearsal. People are like, what the fuck? It's kind of like, ooh, it's a little bit weird because the audience doesn't know what to do at rehearsal, And so then we're like, okay, this is, instead of thinking, lucky bastard, because I didn't know that I don't know that's a lucky thing, lucky bastards to come to rehearsal. I called up my friends at Pie Eyed Pizza here in Chicago. I'm like, can we get 6 or 8 pizzas? And they kind of gave us a deal, and they cut their pizzas with a pentagram, right?
Yeah.
They're all it's really good pizza. And then I'm like, well, what if we bought 6 cases of PBR, Pabst Blue Ribbon? It's like, I don't know, $1 a can, maybe.
Yeah.
And so, it's a really nice rehearsal place. It's a really big room, and we put up all the backdrops, so we felt pretty good. And then there's a separate room with a grand piano and this full catering-sized kitchen to feed band and crew with huge refrigerators, and we laid out all this food. And it's so that seems like we switched it, so we're welcoming them. We didn't have to do. Unnecessary is one of my new words. If you can be unnecessary, be unnecessary. There's no need for me to call the pizza place or to then buy beer, And I think we said in our invite, there'll be some refreshments, bring some beer if you want. And a few people did. Somebody brought this ridiculously old, expensive scotch, a toast. Okay. But so it seems like that's the story, right? We flipped it and everybody was happy. But I'm playing my drums, I'm looking around. Charles Levi, one of our bass players, normally I've seen him fall asleep at rehearsals. And I've also seen him with a couple of plates of Chinese food on the bass, halfway paying attention. He's fucking on it. He's on it because there's 50 people, know. And then Randy Blythe from Lamb of God, I never met him before. Greta, one of our other bass players, play with Moby, and she knows him from Richmond, Virginia. She invited him to come out. He comes in. I'm like, hey, how you doing? He's like, yeah, there's 3 songs. And we're just sitting there as he fucking nails that song, a song called Tapeworm. And I'm like, holy F. And so anybody who's at rehearsals is watching us gobsmacked. Wow. And we're watching them. And so people just don't forget this stuff.
Yeah.
So once you get into this mindset of doing things differently, you can be surprised and amazed by the results. In the same way that you try and surprise and amaze your audience.
Yeah, yeah.
So can I tell you another story in
Of course.
that same way?
Yeah.
So we hadn't done a show for a decade with Pigface because I started teaching. I just went all over the world speaking. Norway 5 times, Melbourne Music Week, Medellin, Colombia, Brasilia. That's what I was doing. And so after a while, I'm like, it's been fucking 10 years. Should we do it? And I thought, I took a page out of the Rolling Stones playbook and I said, the last Pigface show. We're going to do one show in Chicago. It's going to be the last show. We're not going to do this again because I'm teaching, you know. And so that was where I started to send out these packages with the notes and the candy. And we had like Leslie Rankine, who sings with a band called Ruby and Silverfish. She sang a song that she'd sung with us in '92 called Chickasaw. And she'd never sung it with us live. She sang it once in the studio. And then, you know, we all went our separate ways. And she got a plane from Scotland. She walked into the rehearsals, same as Randy did. And she sang that song and we all just cried. She said, I've waited over 20 years to sing that song.
Wow.
And so, like, immediately, before we even do the show, people are like, is this really the last show? And then Mary Biker from Gay Bikers, he's saying, because I've got a 2-year visa. They gave us a 2-year work permit. So we could, you know, trying to, you know, there's the emotional angle. People are like, yeah, we got the work permits, you know. I'm like, we can't. So we had a rehearsal at a small club and then did a big show at the House of Blues. And all the fucking time, people are just like, we can't stop doing this. Galen Lee came out on stage with us and made everybody cry, playing her fiddle. Just her voice just kind of reaches inside you. And it's like, how could we not do this? But then I'm like, hold on a minute. We can't do it. This was the last show. People bought tickets to the last show. This is kind of false advertising, blah, blah, blah. And as much as it's like, you know, as much as it's rock and roll, it's theater. I've hurt my arm. Suddenly I'm better and I'm playing lead guitar. It's all theater. There's right and wrong. So I wrote, because we sold the tickets direct and needed everybody's information for their signed notes and their handfuls of candy, I could reach out to everybody. And I sent them all an email. I said, oh, something's happened. And this will not be discussed any further unless I have your permission to do so or not. From the outset, on stage, and this last day, everybody's come to me and said, we want to do this again. This was so powerful. And I said, all I can do is say to you, our audience and our fans, what do you think? And if you say, how dare you, I want my money back, you motherfuckers. We flew from San Antonio, Texas, and blah, 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 with the hotel and the taxi fare. You know, it's up to you, you know. And I mean, honestly, there's so many of these surprises still, right? I sat there and I thought, okay, it's in their hands now. Not knowing the answer, because I've got into it. I can get like a 2-month-long email thread because we forgot to put a free button in with somebody's free T-shirt, and you want to say, like, dude, you know, like,
Thumbs up, you know,
I'm sorry you didn't get a free capitalized button with your free shirt, blah, 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 you know, but we're busy. It's like, you know, so I didn't know what I was going to get back. I got back 50 plus responses. One was 7 pages long. My first Pigface concert in 1991, blah, blah, blah. I met my wife, blah, blah, blah. I spoke to you outside the concert, didn't have any money. You took me in the venue, took me in the dressing room, gave me some beers and a shirt. I'll never forget that. Blah, blah, blah. And everybody was like, one guy was like, we knew this was never going to be the only show anyway. which I didn't know that. And everybody was just like, with our blessings, fucking go for it.
Go for it.
So that's that same, I think that comes from Radiohead, the pay what you want, pay what you feel. Because when they announced that, I thought, you stupid idiots. You know, because if you give away French fries in England, you know, there'll be people, they got to get the police to bat people away with riot sticks for the free French fries. Or a free buffet. It's like, you know, even my mom on a free buffet, I got a bacon sandwich in one pocket, I got 2 boxes of cereal in my handbag, you know. And but in that context, to let people just take your music, seemed crazy. Yet they made more money, and you know, we just so now we start to practice that. We just did an event, pay what you want. And it includes free. So you've got people, anytime you do anything for a period of time, you've got people who didn't have any money when they saw you in 91 and have got bags of money now, or were doing well back then, and medical situations, whatever, they're in a bad situation now. So by doing that, you've got a bunch of people coming for free, and other people like, here's $100, thank you so much. Love that you're doing this. So that's more of the more you do that, the more you're easy with that.
That's an interesting one, isn't it? You know about kind of like how deep your relationship is with your with your fans, with your audience, and the respect that you got, the fact that they're not, if more often than not, people would generally, if they can't pay, fair enough, but if they can, they'll give something, and that's where you kind of like, you want that level of depth of relationship with your fans.
Right. We did a I think it was the 2016 show. We created a pay it forward ticket because we got emails from people like, it was a $50 ticket, I think, at the House of Blues. And because it was a very expensive show to put on. And so instead of just holding up our hands when people said they couldn't pay, we created this pay it forward ticket. So people could buy an extra ticket that we could give to somebody, and we just said, just trust us. We're not going to like, we're actually going to give tickets to people. And I sometimes I hear people in the business like, oh, fucking fans, oh, I've got to sign this stuff. I'm like, just be thankful that somebody wants you to sign anything.
Absolutely.
Like, how dare you, really,
I agree with you, Martin. Well, listen, I think I wish we could talk longer. It's been absolutely fascinating. I really, really enjoyed it, and thanks so much for your time. It's been really amazing, and congratulations on everything that you're doing. I think it's truly fantastic.
Thank you. It's nice to talk to you, Giles. If I can,
yes.
If anybody wants a copy of Band Smart, which is the book after Tour Smart, but it's kind of a prequel. It's everything you need to do as a band, from legal to names to distribution to studios and all kinds of stuff. That 600 pages of that's free at martinatkins.com. I think there's also I have another little book called Welcome to the Music Business, You're Fucked, which is the best T-shirt ever. I think there's a free download of that book as well. And I'm on Twitter at Martin, MarTeEen, 4 E's, just like the old days. Boom, boom. And I'm on Instagram as Flowers Fight for Sunshine.
Brilliant. That's perfect. And the message to take home is get the fuck out of bed as well.
Get the fuck out of bed. Great things happen when you do stuff. Nothing happens when you don't.
Perfect.
Thanks, Giles.
Martin, thanks very much. Take care.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to the show, and I really hope that you enjoyed it and that you'll tune in for the next episode. In the meantime, it would be really awesome if you could rate and review the show, and also share it with any friends who you think might enjoy it.